Hello everyone, my name is Jacob Landis-Eigsti, and I'd like to give you my 10 tips to be a faster editor. I've worked professionally as an editor in Hollywood on a variety of projects, and at one point I had a job interview where I was asked to complete 16 editing tasks in 15 minutes. I finished with about a minute to spare, and the person hiring told me no one had ever made it past step number 7. And I wanted to share with you some techniques I used to meet that really difficult deadline. Now, this is just what's worked well for me and what helped me meet deadlines for work, and I encourage you to look up what other people have to say regarding the subject. These aren't editor specific, although I'm planning some videos in the future with more tips that are specific to editing platforms. I'm using Final Cut 10 in this tutorial, but I've used Avid, Premiere, Final Cut 7, and they each have their pros and cons. Final Cut 10 has worked well for recent projects because of its ability to digest and sync footage quickly, as well as upload directly to Vimeo and YouTube, but I do choose different editing programs depending on the project and the strengths and limitation of each editing platform. So let's get going. Tip number 1, when I have a really tough deadline, the most important thing to do is have a good game plan before I start. Taking a couple minutes to think about the best order to get your work done really makes it so you're following steps you've laid out in your mind rather than making it up as you go. If you have to transcode clips, transcode the ones you can do the most with first so you can begin organizing and editing those while the rest of the clips are transcoding. If you need to do any graphics work or work in any other program, try to work on that when you're rendering your clips in your editor so 2 things are happening at once. And if I have multiple things I need to upload online, I get the first one edited and uploading as quickly as possible, so I'm working on other projects while that one is uploading. You want to minimize your time twiddling your thumbs and waiting for a render or upload. The second tip is to organize your footage both on your hard drive and in the editing program. Now, here I think balance is important. Like when I had 16 tasks to do in 15 minutes, I could have easily spent the entire 15 minutes organizing and labeling clips and making sub-clips, but I ended up dedicating about a minute to just really efficient organization. Now, your main goal is to understand where everything is and not waste time later on looking for everything. Try to set it up in a way that you can find everything you need in a couple of seconds. I highly recommend separating your audio, stills, and clips into various folders, both on your hard drive and in your editor. And if you're working on something enormous like a feature film or TV episode, I recommend taking a lot of time labeling every single clip and segment, or you'll get really lost in the future. Tip 3 is to know your hotkeys. The less you use your mouse, the better. Dropping your clip in the timeline is something you do over and over and over, so make sure you have one key to drop it at the playhead and another to drop it at the end of the timeline. Take the time to memorize these and realize what they do and how that can impact your editing. Tip 4 is to use markers. You can place them to time your edit to music, sync audio manually, and indicate important moments. Placing and labeling markers help you to keep things organized and show where various elements go in your timeline. Tip 5 is to have a good understanding of multicam and when to use it. Some projects it's faster to line things up in the timeline, but on others it's absolutely worth the time to create a multicam clip. A lot of times it lets you edit in real time and work much faster. Becoming really comfortable with creating a multicam clip in your platform can really speed up your workflow on projects where you can utilize it well. Tip number 6 is to create a basic core edit quickly. Now, it varies from person to person the exact order they do their edit, but I found getting a quick edit that has dialogue and a general idea of timing is a good starting point. Sometimes I'll close my eyes just to get the timing and flow of the dialogue down. Building a solid foundation of a piece is important. You can really tweak the exact frames and cuts and music and B-roll later on, but getting down an overview of the piece and its core elements has really helped me to move forward. Tip number 7 is to use real-time editing. The ability to look over your work and edit it at the same time will really speed things up. I'll usually play the video all the way through 2 or 3 times, and I'll be tweaking the cuts and adding in clips as I go. It's really helpful to get a feel for the edit, but you can also be analyzing what needs to be added and what's missing, and you can be changing things as you're going. Inserting clips, tweaking audio levels, and changing where clips stop and start. I can usually get the edit 80 to 90% of the way there just using this method and do my fine-tuning at the end. Tip number 8 is to take a break. This may seem counterintuitive, but research has shown you're actually more effective if you take some breaks every hour or so. Find an activity that helps you recharge in a couple minutes. If you're watching an edit over and over and over and making tweaks, stepping away can actually help you come back with a fresh pair of eyes. And sometimes I can even get tired of a specific task or program that's becoming repetitive, and I'll switch over to another task just for a few minutes to recharge. Tip 9 is to know each program and its strengths and weaknesses. For example, I knew what format we compressed all our videos to at work, and I ran a test with 4 different programs to see which could compress the same clip the fastest. And the one we were currently using took 20 minutes longer to compress a 5-minute clip, which translated to tons of times lost since it was a task we were doing several times every day. Figure out what programs are best at each task and get better at the programs that excel in certain areas. Sometimes we're more familiar with a program and use that one instead, but really look into the capabilities of a number of programs so you can be faster in the future. And don't be afraid to run tests. Depending on where you work, they may require you to work exclusively with certain programs in a workflow, but many jobs I've been at have given some freedom, especially when it comes to something like compressing files. And tip number 10 is to watch your work as you are uploading. Sometimes there's an issue with a clip, or sometimes you didn't notice something in the edit. I recommend starting to upload it online, but then immediately watching it to make sure everything is perfect. If possible, have someone else watch it with you to have a fresh pair of eyes. If there's an issue, you can cancel the upload and make the change and then upload the new one. It's awful to spend 45 minutes uploading a clip, and then notice once it's finished you have to make a change and start the entire process over again. And your last bonus tip is never stop learning. A few summers ago, I'd been using Final Cut 7 for about 10 years, and I'd done it full-time as a professional editor for several years. But I took an online 8-hour crash course one weekend, and even though 97% of what they covered I already knew, the additional 3% really helped me to speed up my workflow. I also recommend having others talk to you about their work and their tips. Sometimes I'll even take a short project and edit it 3 to 4 times with different workflows to try to figure out which one is the most efficient. Don't forget to memorize your hotkeys, don't be afraid to tweak your workflow, and just figure out what works best for you. I really hope this video was helpful for you. I encourage you to look at what others have to say about the topic, and please ask me any questions at all down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like or a share, and please subscribe since I'll have many more tutorials coming soon. This is Jacob Landis-Eigsti, and thank you so much for watching.